Hey guys, my name is Ying, and this semester I made my inquiry about animation. Animation is the art of making inanimate objects appear to move. It's the technique of photographing successive drawings, puppets, or models to create the illusion of movement. But right now, animation is more the imitation of electronic images by means of a computer to create moving images, rather than taking consecutive photos. I'll be talking about the history of animation, the different techniques of animation, and current ways animation is being used, and why all of this matters. So, animation started a lot further back than you think. People say that the first recorded animator was Pygmalion from Greek mythology. He was a sculptor that created a sculpture of a woman so perfect that he begged the gods to bring her to life, therefore making an inanimate object move. Of course, this was only a myth. Animation actually started as new sensations for the touring Magic Lantern show, which used the principle of persistence of vision. This principle stated that if the drawings of the stages of an action were shown in fast succession, the human eye would see it as continuous movement. Then came the first commercially successful animation device invented in 1832, the phenakistoscope, which was a spinning cardboard disc that made the illusion of movement when shown in a mirror. After this invention, several others like it was invented, such as the zoetrope that was invented in 1834. The zoetrope was a rotating drum with a band of interchangeable pictures. This was then adapted to a form that could be projected to audiences in 1876. Then came the first ever film-based animator, J. Stuart Blackton. He made the first film-based animation called Humorous Phases of Funny Faces in 1906. This launched a series of successful animated films for the pioneering film company Vitagraph Company in New York. Blackton also made another film called Haunted House, but that was made using stop motion. There were many other early animators like Blackton. One example is Emile Cole in France. He had developed a form of animation very similar to Blackton's, but instead of the newspaper-style cartoons, Cole used stick figures. At that time, these advancements in the animation industry attracted several artists to the industry. Artists like Rube Goldberg, Bud Fisher, and George Harriman tried animation for a while, but soon grew tired of the extensive and tiring animation process. There were some artists who didn't quit, and one such artist was Winsor McCay. He was known for Little Nemo in Slumberland and Dreams of the Rarebit Fiend, both of which are considered pinnacles of comic strip art. He created Gertie the Dinosaur for his 1914 tour, and this one film was said to transform the art of animation. He made it with master craftsmanship, gave it a fluid sense of movement, and created a great character. His characters seemed to have personality, presence, and life. Another famous early animator was Otto Messimer. He had created an animated black cat named Felix, who was the star of an extremely popular series of one-reelers. Felix was designed to be flexible and expressive. He was basically a rubber ball on legs that took minimum effort to draw and could constantly be in motion. And now comes an animator most, if not all of you know, Walt Disney. You all should know about Walt Disney and the massive company he has created. Along with being very, very successful in this industry, he also made many contributions to the development of this industry. The first character he created was based on Felix the Black Cat, and he called him Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. But then Disney lost the rights to Oswald in a dispute between him and his distributor, and so he just modified the ears of Oswald and made the iconic and extremely popular character of Mickey Mouse. Disney made many contributions. He made the first animation with synchronized sound in Steamboat Willie in 1928, which made the illusion of life that animation gave so much more real. He also added synchronized music in Skeleton Dance, made in 1929, three-strip Technicolor in Flowers and Trees, made in 1932, and The Illusion of Death with a multi-plane camera in The Old Mill, made in 1937. A multi-plane camera is a motion picture camera that moves pieces of artwork past the camera at varying speeds and distances from the camera. Walt Disney's technician, Ub Iwerks, played a massive part in creating the multi-plane camera and the synchronization techniques. And finally, in 1937, Disney made one of his most well-known and iconic films, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. It was the first animated feature to use modern techniques and to receive a wide Hollywood-style release. The films he made following Snow White, like Pinocchio, Dumbo, and Bambi, had a photographic realism and imitated life really well. Other than Disney, the Fleischer brothers were also pretty important to the animation industry. Max and Dave Fleischer were two successful New York animators. They invented rotoscoping, which is taking live-action footage, tracing it, and redrawing it as a cartoon. This method is still in use today in films. They used rotoscoping to create the series out of the inkwell that combined live-action film and animation in one screen. The series featured Betty Boop, a curvaceous torch singer. It was urban, overcrowded, sexually suggested, and often nightmarish work. After Betty Boop, the brothers went into a Disney-esque cuteness with the films Gulliver's Travels and Mr. Bug Goes to Town. They were also responsible for making Popeye the Sailor, which was based on a strip comic by L.T. Cigar, but they lost the rights to Popeye when Fleischer Studios collapsed. Another famous animation is Termite Terrace. It was produced by Warner Brothers Cartoon Studio, which was founded by 3 Disney veterans, Rudolph Ising, Hugh Harman, and Friz Freleng. They also had Tex Avery as a director. With Avery as director, along with musical director Stalling, voice interpreter Blank, and a talented staff, they created a new kind of cartoon character. This character was cynical, wisecracking, and often violent, and that character was Bugs Bunny. Eventually, more iconic characters were added, well-known characters that you probably have heard of like Daffy Duck, Tweety, Sylvester, and Porky Pig. To create animation like the ones I've mentioned so far, there are many different techniques you can use, but in general there are 5 forms of animation used. There's traditional animation, which is one of the older forms of animation, and includes the animator drawing every frame of the animation sequence. They use a transparent piece of paper and start with rough drawings to test how many frames is needed for the sequence. Then they clean up and add the in-between drawings. Finally, they would move on to photographing each of the individual frames. Today, though, this process can be done on a computer using a tablet, so photographing every frame is unnecessary. This form of animation is often very costly and lengthy. Then there's vector-based 2D animation. This is computer-generated 2D animations and uses the same exact techniques of traditional animation, but it doesn't require any physical objects. The third form of animation is 3D animation, or CGI, which is made by using a series of images generated by computers to create the frames for an animated shot. This method has a lot of similarities to stop-motion animation by both having to animate and pose models. It also uses the frame-by-frame approach of 2D animations. Animators digitally model the characters and fit them into a skeleton of sorts to allow the animators to move the character like a puppet. Then the animators post the models in several important frames, and the computer will calculate and create the movement between the important frames. Another form is stop motion. Stop motion is taking a photo of an object, moving it slightly, and taking another photo. This is repeated, and when the photos are played one after another, it creates the illusion of movement. This is basically traditional animation, but with physical objects instead. Stop motion takes a very long time and a lot of effort to make because each object has to be precisely moved inch by inch and photographed each time to create the illusion of fluid movement. Stop motion can be made with clay models, puppets, paper or cardboard cutouts, and action figures. And finally, the last form is motion graphics. This one is still considered animation even though it's really different from the other types of animation I've mentioned. This kind has no relation to characters or stories. It is simply just moving around graphic elements or text, usually for commercial or promotional purposes. It is often seen in animated logos, explainer videos, television promos, and film opening titles. Animation is used a lot in films, TV shows, and video games. It is used in a very popular form of animation called anime. Anime, by definition, is a style of Japanese film and television animation. It comes from the dense novel-like Japanese style of comics called manga and the modern techniques of the animation industry. One of the most famous directors and creators of the anime industry is Hayao Miyazaki, who has been in the animation industry for 50 years. He's known for masterpieces like Spirited Away, Princess Mononoke, and My Neighbor Totoro. He's also an extremely influential creative figure both in Japan and internationally. Prominent people in the animation industry like John Lasseter, the chief creative officer of Pixar Studios, have said to be influenced by him. Lasseter once said that in frustrating moments during a film production, he'd take the entire team to watch Miyazaki films to get re-inspired. Miyazaki's films have some strong and important themes, like anti-war and environmentalism. He also refuses to sexualize, victimize, or belittle any of his female characters. Instead, they are able to take charge of their own lives and be strong and independent. Miyazaki refuses to replace hand-drawn animation with CGI. He tries to find a balance between the two. He wants to keep hand-drawn animation for the better expressions he can create, and as well as a form of branding, so people will be able to recognize his films right away. There are many other studios who make anime. Some of the more well-known and popular ones include A1 Pictures, Studio Bones, and Madhouse. Of course, America is also a big producer of animation. One of the ways they used it was for television. It was started by William Hanna and Joseph Barbera when they made Yogi Bear and the Flintstones, but their series had primitive technique and careless writing. When The Simpsons debuted in 1989, TV animation had become a social commentary that was too aggressive and violent for live-action realism. And then came shows like Beavis and Butthead, South Park, and Rocky and His Friends. This type of threadbare television-style animation became a vehicle for absurdist humor and adult satire. Animation is also a really big source of entertainment for kids. Television series like Dora the Explorer, Johnny Bravo, Fairy Odd Parents, Kim Possible, Teen Titans Go, and many others have made up the childhoods of many kids. There are also many animated movies aimed towards children made by companies like Disney, Pixar, DreamWorks, and many others. Well-known Disney and Pixar movies like Toy Story, Finding Nemo, Frozen, and others have been loved by kids and even adults everywhere. So, after learning this much about animation, why does any of this matter? Animation is a large part of many cultures around the world. It is a magical medium where anything that you can imagine can be made. It doesn't have limitations like other mediums. It has many purposes, from pure entertainment to getting an important theme or message across, to commercial and promotional purposes. It is used very often in our society and plays a massive role in our entertainment. Thanks for watching. Bye!